Hi, and welcome to another week's Tips for AI Trailblazers. I'm Kathleen Purley, your host and founder and CEO of Demystify. This week, we're going to dive into the world of the O1 preview model. This is OpenAI's ChatGPT's latest release that came out on September 12th. Now, after using it for a couple weeks, I've identified which use cases is it most valuable for, as well as how to prompt it so that you get the best output. Now, what I found is for my typical everyday tasks, because if you're not careful, you will hit your token limit for the O1 preview model. So be using it diligently. But for your everyday run-of-the-mill, what I'll call production style tasks, continue to use the ChatGPT 4.0 model. Now, if you're doing more mathematics, some coding, things of that nature, the O1 preview mini model is great for number crunching. Now, when you look at the larger O1 preview model, it's really good at analyzing what I'll call like big picture thinking. Or I have a 6-year-old little son, so I think of it almost like crush thoughts, right? Like this, what is the meaning of life type questions. Now, it can possibly answer some of those, but maybe more in line of what are the potential implications of AI within the healthcare sector? Now, when I think about how you prompt these, what I found is that less is more. You do not need a ton of language like you do typically in the 4.0 models or some of the other platforms. Keeping it simple and concise actually helps the model and allows it to be creative in terms of how it thinks through, identifies whether or not that's the right approach, and then provides you your output. So make sure that you're keeping your language simple and direct and clear. The other thing I've noticed is you don't need to have chain of thought or step 1, step 2, step 3 in your instructions in your prompts anymore. So just simply ask, help me understand Bayes' theorem as it impacts the business analytics world and doing research, for example. You do not need to go first, read this article on Bayes' theorem and help me understand the unique perspectives of AI and Bayes' theorem and business analytics. You don't need all that additional context. You don't need to ask it to review things and then conclude from that perspective. And one of the other things I've noticed is that you need to leverage industry-specific language. So we talk about words and the importance of context and knowing a word by the company it keeps. So if you're wanting to have the AI model really think about something from, let's call a healthcare research perspective, you might talk about genomics or using some of the language that you typically use in that industry or field and providing context that way. You don't necessarily need to tell it anymore. I'm a genomics researcher, I'm a bioscience researcher, or anything like that. It really can pick up on that based on the language that you're using. Now, the final thing I've identified is that delimiters or markdowns or markups, depending on how you want to talk about it, are not as necessary. So typically I used to do 3 quotation marks at the beginning of something and the end to show, kind of explain, okay, here's your initial instruction set. This is the content I want you to summarize or turn into a LinkedIn article or a post or a share. And you no longer have to do that as much. I mean, it's still helpful. Out of all the markdowns, I find the 3 quotation marks to be the most simplified and the most valuable. But you no longer have to do as much as it pertains to any type of HTML markup in your prompts. It's really not as necessary in the O1 preview and the O1 preview mini model. The one thing I have found is that oftentimes if you ask it for different perspectives, it can also really give a really unique, approach. So what is the impact of AI in healthcare? Take a perspective from physicians, hospital administration, and patients might be an example. It does a really great job of that. So I'm going to show you really quickly just a sample prompt to use in the O1 model. And then I will show you how to get access to it, because I've gotten a lot of questions like, how do I turn on the O1 model and things of that nature? And it's very, very simple. So if you are in either ChatGPT on the desktop or on the online web browser, web page version, you typically see this thing in the top left-hand corner, which allows you to select the different models. So you can see you have the 4.0. It is starting to add these additional kind of context clues in terms of great for most tasks. This uses advanced reasoning, faster at reasoning. So the O1 mini, which is great at math and some basic coding stuff. The 4.0 mini is great for everyday tasks, and the 4 is just like an older legacy model. So we're going to do the O1 preview model, and I'm going to copy and paste a simple kind of prompt that you would typically use in this model. So maybe let's just ask it, what is the impact of AI in the healthcare sector over the next decade, and consider both potential job loss and job creation. So if we add this in, let me just copy the paste in. We'll maybe keep it more broad, saying we have some non-healthcare folks here. So analyze the impact of artificial intelligence on job markets in the next decade. Consider both potential job losses and new job creation. It thought for 5 seconds, so maybe it wasn't that hard of a thinking task for it. But it gives you some of these really advanced kind of reasoning and kind of more complex problems in terms of how it thinks about these things. I'm going to give you another example just to show you kind of how maybe if you try it one way and then what it looks like from another perspective. So let's just say we're going to ask it some questions around quantum computing, which is a very advanced topic and probably not as necessary. So if you had, let's try, and we'll do a new chat because I often find times that does make a difference. So let's open a new chat. I'm going to ask it about quantum computing. This is probably something I would typically see in a 4.0 model, right? I'm providing a lot of like you act as an expert physicist and carefully consider these step-by-step instructions. I don't know if that's entirely necessary. So look, it's already asking some specifics. So let's try a different prompt, keeping it very simple and direct. And I'm going to show you kind of the difference that we're seeing here. So I'm going to open up a new window. I'm going to copy and paste this prompt in. And it allows the model to really go through its own process. And I really love the new feature where you're kind of seeing that ensuring accuracy, different steps. It almost makes it feel more human-like, which is great. And then you're getting this prompt. So as you can see, if you add too much what I'll call noise to some of your prompts in the O1 model, you typically see some of the models fail, like we did today. So I hope you find this helpful as it pertains to the O1 models and how to use them, when to use them, so you're not running up your bill. And next week, please join us for tips for AI trailblazers as we navigate kind of the world of AI and how it can really help from a research perspective using the new Notebook LLM.